You're at a beach. Sun's out, sleeves are rolled up, and everywhere you look, ink, tiny symbols behind ears, full sleeves telling stories, coordinates, dates, dragons, minimalist lines that probably mean something personal. And then there's you, or maybe someone you know. You've never had a tattoo, not one, not even the tiny maybe someday one. When people ask, you give a casual answer. It's just not my thing. Or, I don't like needles. Or the classic, I can't commit to a haircut, let alone something permanent. But here's the interesting part. For some people, never getting a tattoo isn't random. It's not just fear of pain or indecision. It reflects something deeper about how they relate to identity, permanence, attention, and control. So what's really going on in the minds of people who never get tattoos? Let's explore a few quiet psychological profiles hiding beneath that bare skin. First, there's the identity minimalist. Picture this person scrolling through tattoo inspiration online. They appreciate the art. They even admire the symbolism. But every time they imagine something on their own body, a quiet voice says, "But what if I change?" For them, identity feels fluid, evolving. They've been different versions of themselves at 15, 20, 25. They suspect they'll be different at 40. So the idea of freezing one moment, one belief, one aesthetic, one emotional chapter onto their skin feels limiting. It's not that they don't feel deeply. They do, sometimes more than most. But they hesitate to make any one moment permanent because they understand how temporary feelings can be. Psychologically, this often ties to high openness and strong future orientation. They're constantly updating themselves, reinventing, refining. A tattoo can feel like a declaration, "This is who I am," and they're not sure they want to declare anything that firmly. Maybe that's you. You don't dislike tattoos. You just don't want yesterday's self narrating tomorrow's body. Then there's the control preserver. This person thinks carefully before big decisions. They research mattresses for 3 weeks. They read every review before buying headphones. Permanence isn't romantic to them. It's serious. A tattoo, in their mind, isn't just art. It's irreversible. Even if removal exists, it's expensive, painful, imperfect. So their brain goes into risk management mode. What if I regret it? What if my taste changes? What if I need to look a certain way professionally? Underneath that caution is often a strong internal locus of control. They like knowing they can adjust, pivot, change direction. Tattoos remove one layer of flexibility, and flexibility equals safety for them. This doesn't mean they're rigid. It means they're strategic. They treat their body like real estate. Permanent decisions require extraordinary conviction. They may even admire people who dive in spontaneously, but themselves, they prefer reversible choices. If that resonates, you might notice a pattern. You value autonomy not just in what you do, but in what you can undo. Another profile is the private symbolist. This one is interesting. They absolutely have meaningful stories, losses, triumphs, turning points, symbols that matter, but they don't feel the need to display them physically. When someone says, "My tattoo reminds me of my strength," they might quietly think, "I don't need a visible reminder. I carry it internally." For them, meaning is sacred, and sacred things aren't always meant to be public. There's often a subtle discomfort with broadcasting personal narratives. A tattoo can invite questions. What does it mean? Why did you get that? And that kind of attention feels invasive. So, instead of marking their skin, they mark their memory. Instead of externalizing identity, they internalize it. Psychologically, this can link to introversion or high self-containment. They process deeply, but privately. Their milestones don't require an audience. If you're this type, you might notice you don't post major life events online either. You prefer intimacy over exhibition. Then there's the nonconformist in disguise. Here's the twist. In some social circles, having tattoos is the norm. It signals creativity, boldness, individuality. So ironically, not having one becomes the quieter rebellion. This person might think, everyone is expressing themselves in the same way. They don't want to reject tattoos loudly, they just don't feel compelled to join. Psychologically, this reflects a strong internal identity that doesn't rely on visible differentiation. They don't need an external marker to feel unique. Sometimes it's subtle contrarianism. When something becomes popular, they instinctively step back, not out of judgment, just instinct. If trends move left, they move right. Not dramatically, just enough to stay internally aligned. And sometimes never getting a tattoo is less about fear or caution and more about quiet independence. But there's one more profile worth mentioning, the sensory guardian. Some people are deeply attuned to bodily sensations. Needles feel overwhelming. The idea of hours under buzzing equipment makes their nervous system tense up immediately. It's easy to dismiss this as just fear of pain, but it can be more nuanced. Highly sensitive individuals often experience physical stimuli more intensely. Their threshold for discomfort is different. It's not weakness, it's wiring. They may think, why voluntarily endure that when I don't have to? And here's the thing, our culture sometimes frames tattoos as courage or self-expression, so people who don't get them can feel subtly pressured, like they're missing a rite of passage. But not every rite of passage needs to be carved into skin. Now, let's zoom out. Tattoos at their core are about narrative. They say, this matters enough to stay. So when someone never gets one, it often means one of three things. They believe meaning evolves, they protect flexibility, or they prefer their stories unwritten on the surface. None of these are superior, none are inferior. They're just different psychological relationships with permanence and identity. And here's something subtle. People who never get tattoos often hold a strong sense of self that doesn't require visible reinforcement. Or they hold such a fluid sense of self that no single symbol feels sufficient. Either way, it's about how they relate to who they are. So if you've never gotten a tattoo, ask yourself gently, is it because you don't want permanence? Because you value privacy? Because you protect flexibility? Because you're quietly resisting the norm? Or because your nervous system simply says no? Maybe it's one. Maybe it's a mix. And if you're someone covered in ink watching this, maybe you're recognizing the contrast. Different ways of anchoring identity, different ways of telling stories. The psychology isn't about skin, it's about self-concept. So, which profile felt closest to you? Or did you see someone else in this description? A friend, a sibling, a partner? I'd love to know how this lands for you. And if exploring these quiet patterns of human behavior speaks to you, stay with us. There's always another subtle trait hiding in plain sight. Sometimes, the most interesting psychology isn't what people choose to show, it's what they quietly choose not to.